Welcome to the Voices for Voices podcast, sponsored by Redwood Living. Thank you for joining us today. I am Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices, host and humanitarian. You can also learn more about Voices for Voices on our Instagram and Facebook and YouTube at Voices for Voices and our website, voicesforvoices.org. Voices for Voices is a 501c3 nonprofit charity organization that survives solely on donations. So if you're able to, please consider heading over to voicesforvoices.org to help us continue our mission and the goal and the dream of mine to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. Or you can also send a donation to the mailing address of Voices for Voices at 2388 Beckett Circle, Stow, Ohio, 44224. Or you can also donate on the Cash App at Voices for Voices. Are you or somebody you know looking for a volunteer opportunity? If so, you can reach out to us today via email at president@voicesforvoices.org. I founded Voices for Voices to provide a platform for folks to share their stories with others as we work to break the stigma around mental health, accessibility, and disabilities, helping people get the help they need while also helping them prepare and or transition into the workforce with the Voices for Voices Career Center, where we connect talent with opportunity for both job seekers and employers from coast to coast and in every industry and job level. And who can forget about merchandise? The Voices for Voices merchandise shop is finally up and running at voicesforvoices.org/shop, where shipping is always free. And again, all donations are 100% tax deductible. Today's guest is a presiding judge in the Summit County Court of Common Pleas. She is the founder of Hope Court for Felonies. And she will also be presented with the 2023 Voices for Voices Ambassador of the Year Award at our annual A Brand New Day Charity Gala and Fundraiser on October 13th at the Leona Farris Lodge in Stow, Ohio. So please join me in welcoming to the show today Judge Alison Breaux. Welcome and thank you for joining us.
You bet. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for our listeners, our viewers, will be on TV as well as all audio platforms. Can you share a little bit maybe about your background and how you became interested in the legal profession?
Sure. So moved to Summit County just before high school and went to high school in Summit County at Hudson High School. We'd moved around a lot when I grew up. And so I was bound and determined to never live in Ohio because I just, it wasn't cool enough for me when I was, 14-year-old. So after graduating from high school, I moved to Texas and I went to TCU for 1 year. But honestly, I couldn't escape the fact that I had somewhere along the line, I turned into a Midwest girl. I found my way back to Ohio and then transferred to Kent State University, where I graduated from. And then after Kent State, I went to the University of Akron for law school. When I was in high school, when I was in college, I was always really interested in social justice. I was always interested in law, but I don't know if I'd really considered it seriously as a career until I was nearing the end of my college career. And, my dad made the suggestion, you're really argumentative. Have you ever thought about going to law school? And, it just kind of stuck with me. And so I said, well, I haven't, not necessarily terribly seriously. So I decided that I was going to take the LSAT, which is the entrance exam for law school. And I was going to kind of say, hey, if I do well on this and I get accepted to law school based on those scores, then maybe it's something I should pursue. And so that kind of just how things organically happened. And then I went to law school.
So what was the hardest thing about law school?
Oh, everything, everything. It was really, really tough. All the reading, all of the assignments, just the vast amount of cases and case law that we had to study every night, it was very, very different from undergrad for me. It required a lot of my time, a lot of my attention. It didn't come easy to me. So I really had a hard time in law school. It wasn't, I didn't just breeze through. But I still loved every bit of it. It just was really, really tough.
So the public speaking part of being a judge and going through in the law school up until this point, I know there are some viewers and listeners that may be more of an introvert and might also have that interest of the legal profession. Are there any maybe tips or tricks of how somebody can practice to be comfortable speaking in front of people, speaking in interviews?
So, the law is so versatile. There's so many things that you can do with a law degree. Just because you have a law degree doesn't mean that you're going to be in the courtroom trying cases and doing that trial work. There are millions of other opportunities to you, and then you don't even have to practice. So just having a law degree is a really, really great degree to have. It makes you very, very marketable. So you can go into a lot of different areas. And also you could definitely then also pursue going into practicing and then, representing clients, et cetera. So there's just a number of things you can do. If you're interested in social justice, if you're interested in politics, if you're interested in entertainment, into sports, into litigation, I mean, you name it, you can do anything with a law degree. And you can have any degree prior to going to law school.
Okay.
So, my daughter is in college right now and she's a freshman and she's, kind of waffling. She doesn't really know what she wants to do. And a lot of the majors that they offer, and there's so many different options now than certainly when I was in college, et cetera, but it's very, very individualized. So if you're going to go into this bracket, then these are the classes you have to take. And then, you feel like you're kind of pigeonholed. Well, I wouldn't say that's true with law. So you can be an English degree, you can get a zoology degree, you can do a million different things and still go into law school. So it's really, really versatile.
So maybe, so I just have a personal interest. The society, there's so many different shows about law and trials and all the facets of the proceedings. What do you think may be the biggest misnomer about somebody who sees a television show that might be a half hour, an hour, versus how things really go from maybe a time perspective and how involved it is? It's not just something that make a few phone calls and go through that process.
Right. I mean, it's for entertainment purposes, right? So are there bits and pieces that are probably true? Yes, for sure. But, the longevity of a case definitely takes a lot longer. There's lots of ins and outs that happen along behind the scenes. There's evidentiary issues that come up. Those things all happen behind the scenes. So it's not the sexy TV show that everybody's tuning into. Those things highlight the most exciting parts of any sort of trial or any sort of case. So that's definitely true. But it's like, same thing with medical shows. So it's not always like that. It's not always like, a really exciting ER visit. There's stuff that goes on behind the scenes that's not as interesting and definitely takes a lot longer.
Great. So Hope Corps, how did that come about, and how did your interest in social justice, law school, turn into mental health, advocacy, and then the Hope Corps?
So when I ran for my current position in 2016. I was elected in November of that year. And so I took the bench in 2017. I was very, very eager to start things and make some changes, et cetera. I had a wonderful mentor. He actually now sits on the House Supreme Court, Judge Donnelly. And we met early in 2017, and I said, I really want to start a mental health court. It's not something we have in Summit County. We have municipal court level mental health courts, but we don't have anything for the felony level. And I have all these ideas. And he said, hold on, you just got here. Take some time, do some research and just work towards that. If you want to do that, that's great, but maybe just get your feet wet a little bit first. And so I took his advice, and that was early in 17. So by 2018, by the spring of that year, I had already planned to meet with a number of different agencies in Summit County that service individuals with mental health issues. And, we had this big meeting in March of 2018. And I said, this is my vision. This is what I want to do. Do you think that we have a need for this? And if so, would you be willing to partner with us? And if so, in what degree? And, everybody in the room said, yes, we need this, please do this, and we will back you however we can. So I had a lot of support from the very beginning. So that was great. And, in that year of 2017, I was definitely taking a look at my cases and realizing that there was a huge cross section of mental health and in criminal justice. So many people found themselves in front of a judge because of their mental illness, and whether it was whether it was like a first psychotic break for the individual who was maybe very young, or whether it was something they were struggling with for years and years and years, or if it was a result of trauma or tragedy or things that had happened in their lives. It was very, very prominent in most cases that I was seeing. So I knew that there was a need. And so I just set out to do it. And then by the fall of 2018, we had our first Hope Court status call with our first participant. So it took us about 6 months to put all the documents into place and get everything started for it.
Fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about the goal setting process, how you set goals and how you go about achieving them? You talked a little bit about that with the Hope Court, where you came in and had a vision, and then it took some time to get all the documents prepared until it got implemented. But even outside of that, just as an individual that might be looking to do some career, and so they have a goal, start a business, go to law school, the different processes that come with it, and then maybe the reality of, I want to do this today versus I want to do this today and I still have the interest today, but it may take 6 months, it may take a year or 2 years, just to maybe give some courage to some individuals to keep at what they're going after.
Yeah. It's great to have goals. It's great to have dreams. Absolutely. They need to be realistic. So I would say, I'll take a look at them and be honest with yourself. Are those goals achievable, et cetera? And then the best thing, I think, is to set some time frames. So set your expectations, make them reasonable, but give yourself deadlines for doing certain parts. Like if I'm setting out to do something, and I need to complete 5 things in order to do that. Well, what's realistically, how am I going to do those things? Is it going to take me 6 months? Is it going to take me 1 year? And then work toward that deadline. Because I think that a lot of times people don't pick stuff up unless they're in preparing for something that's coming up. We set pretrials in all of our cases. And I know, as a practicing lawyer, when I was doing litigation, I have a pretrial coming up. I've got to prepare. I have to check in with my clients. Is everything done? Well, where's my to-do list? I do all of those things. So it's good to have those deadlines to kind of keep you on task.
Great. How important do you think geography, where somebody lives or might have an interest outside the state of Ohio? You mentioned being a brief time in Texas at TCU, but maybe somebody is going through their coursework and they've grown up in North Canton or Hudson or Stowe, and they're like, I want to live in this city because of this thing. Are there any maybe cautionary tales before somebody makes that leap of maybe not knowing anybody in that particular city, or maybe chasing a title too early, maybe not having an emotional tie to the job when they get up in the morning, that it's not just all about the paycheck, that they feel validated at the end of the day?
Yeah. I think it's great to be brave and have courage and to take risks. I think that's, it's really, really admirable to be that way. But it also goes along the same lines as having goals. Like, make sure that those things are realistic. Like, if you want to make a move, okay, but you still have to, you don't just jump on a plane. You need to consider certain things, like what's the cost of living if I'm going to move? What are the things I'm going to have access to? What kinds of other, will I have family close by if I need them? Will I be able to, do they have a program that's near and dear to my heart? Or am I going to just move there because the weather's great, but then find myself not necessarily pursuing the career that I want because those resources are closer to where I am now? And just remember, like, not everything is forever. So, a lot of things, you can make a decision and you can oftentimes change that decision, or you can go back on it. And, sort of like I'm getting out of Ohio and I don't want to live here anymore. And I'm going to go and I'm going to be a Texan, and then going, well, you know what? I'm not sure Texas that's not really my thing. So, just being open to, life is organic. So you have to kind of pick up what life is giving to you, and then mold your next steps based on that. But always be realistic, and don't be afraid to take chances.
Right. The role of politics, just in general, in your life, being getting on the ballot, getting elected, did that come when you were in law school? Okay, this is the route I want to take. Was that part of the process, and just knowing, okay, there might be some things, maybe some administrative type of tasks that need to happen to get to that goal? And what would be maybe the first step if somebody has an interest of whether it's working towards being a judge, another elected official, a mayor, a governor?
Yeah. So I was never really involved in politics. I didn't grow up in a super political family. So when I decided to run for judge, based on some conversations that I had had with my mentors, it was really foreign to me. So I didn't really know what to expect. And I didn't really even understand, how local government was made up. I didn't know the people that I needed to be talking to. And so that I was a really, really sharp learning curve that I had to go through in 2016. Judges although we do belong to parties, at least in Ohio, we try not to be overly politicized because, our job is to look at cases and decide them based on facts and based on the law, apply these facts to the law and come to a fair and just outcome. So it should not be influenced in any way by any sort of politics. It shouldn't be influenced by, just because somebody belongs to one party or the other party. We all have personal views, right? But those things should not come into our work on the bench. And so we should be able to put all of that aside. So, it's difficult for judges because we try very hard not to be political, even though we still belong to parties.
Right. What does, maybe at a high level, I know there's probably not an average day for you, but somebody that has an interest, like I wonder, how many cases or how much reading a judge does on a daily basis, just to have an idea of, okay, I go through the coursework and what's real life like? Because I know going through my marketing degree and coming out, I did one aspect of marketing that was like, oh, I want to do all these things. And then it's like, oh, wait, I'm only going to do this little sliver of that. So it was just a learning curve for me in that respect. And then being an entrepreneur and start an organization. But maybe, what's a day in the life of a judge? Like?
Yeah, so it varies a lot from geographically, just depending on where you are, certainly what state you live in and also what county you live in. So Ohio is made up of 88 counties. Well, some of our counties are very, very large. Summit County is one of the larger counties in population. We have about almost 550,000 people living in Summit County. Compare that to a very small county, like I think Holmes County maybe has like 33,000 people. So your docket is going to very much be impacted by those numbers. But a day in the life of the Common Pleas Court. So I'm in the general division, which means I have civil cases and I have criminal cases. The criminal cases are all felonies. So we carry a docket. COVID has impacted our dockets, but we typically would carry maybe 175 to 250 cases on our criminal docket, and then our civil docket is usually about the same numbers. But we're all trying to get, around 400 cases right now. But anyways, so the civil cases are anything where money damages are at stake. So any litigation that could be personal injury, like a car accident, all the way up to wrongful death, medical malpractice cases, and anything in between, business litigation, you name it. Whenever people are fighting over money, we get those cases. And then our criminal cases is all of our felonies. So we have low-level felonies like drug offenses, theft offenses, fraud, etc. And then all the way up to the more serious level, first-degree, second-degree felonies, including murder, rape, trafficking in drugs, robbery, burglary, all of those things. So we all have a docket where we set things for trial. But most of our cases don't go to trial. That's just based on, I think it's almost like trending. So if we have a trial, then it'll go forward, and then we're in trial for those days, and then those are jury trials. But when we're not in trial, we have, we call them call days, at least in Summit County, where we are checking in with all of our criminal cases. We have a prosecutor assigned to our court, and then we have criminal defense attorneys who come in, represent the individuals who have been charged with crimes, and just work through the cases. Are we close to a resolution? Is there a diversionary program that we can steer this individual into? Is this going to go to trial, et cetera? So things like that. And then, our civil and our criminal cases all involve a lot of research and writing, reading cases, finding case law that's applicable to our cases. We have a staff that supports us, that does a lot of that research and writing for us, but we are like the final say in a lot of that. So it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of research, it's writing, it's a lot of interacting with the public, so a lot of those things.
Bookwork and learning terms and processes is one thing, but being able to network is another, being able to get that information and apply it in whatever manner that is. How important is networking, have you found over the course of your career for yourself and somebody that's like, okay, I have this book knowledge, I did this internship, what do I want to do? And like, oh, I need to talk to this person, or I need to reach out, and those types of things. So if you want to speak on the networking aspect.
Yeah, I think networking is really, really important. It's one of the best things that happens as you campaign. So when you're campaigning, you're in the community, you're really learning more about your community, engaging with individuals, community members, but also, people that run organizations and agencies, and just kind of learning a lot of what's going on, more so than you would if you didn't have to have voters who are going to vote for you. So I think that's a really huge benefit of campaigning for this position, because you are learning what's going on in your community, what are people's concerns, and also what's going on that's working, what's going on that's not working, et cetera, and just talking to people. So I think networking is really important. And I think that I think we as humans, we find out so much valuable information by accident, not necessarily seeking it out, but just, when you sit down and talk to somebody and you learn their story, or you learn what's important to them, you really can learn about, oh, so-and-so. Oh, I would love to meet that person. Maybe they could partner with me. Maybe we could do something here. We could work together here. Maybe, we can be a resource for each other in some way. So I think all of that's really, really important.
Right. And this might be on parallel paths, but being involved with NAMI and a board member, just in the organization, was that just a natural fit with the work that the interest and the work that you were doing kind of on the social justice, the mental health side?
Yeah, definitely. I love the work that NAMI does. We have a pretty robust NAMI in Summit County. Leslie Stoyer is the executive director. She does a wonderful job. And so I've been on the board for almost, maybe it's 2 years. I don't know. I think I might be nearing the end of my first term. Yeah, it's really great work. And, it's almost like, I know people who know about NAMI know about NAMI, but there's so many people who don't. And the fact that it really is a resource for individuals who are touched by mental health, not just necessarily diagnosed with a mental illness, but for families, the support that they offer to families is really, really, it's so important to understanding what that plight is like. There's so many pitfalls involved in struggling with mental illness, and NAMI gives so many resources for those individuals who are touched by it. So it's a really great organization.
Absolutely. When I came out of my 5-day inpatient stay in the psych ward of Akron General, and I learned about NAMI, I wish I would have known about them prior to them,
Right.
but once I found out about them and the tie-in to the family, which trying to explain how I'm feeling to a counselor or therapist versus my wife and in-laws and my parents and people I interact with and might judge based off of like, oh, okay, well, he has major depression and anxiety, so we can't trust him, or whatever the stigma kind of goes along with it. And so I learned that NAMI is one of the best organizations, and especially in Summit County, speaking with other leaders of other NAMI chapters across the country, that the Summit chapter has been recognized many times over the years in the national sense. And that makes me feel good, being that I live in Summit County, to have an organization in the branching out that you're doing with more maybe monthly webinars and those types of things. I think are also helpful too. Just bring in experts that are already involved with the organization. It's like, hey, why don't we just set something up and chat about this topic or a couple topics? And I think that's fascinating, the evolution I think that's occurring with NAMI.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's an enormous asset that we have. Absolutely.
Great. Well, that's all the questions that I had. Is there anything branding-wise that you wanted to share? I know the election already happened from that standpoint, but if somebody wants to follow what your, may not you individually, but the office or the court, is there social media that Summit County Court of Common Pleas has?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook presence, and we certainly have a website. Summit County, we are sort of parallel to how great the NAMI organization is in Summit County. Also, too, is the amount of resources that we have in Summit County. When I talk to other judges from other areas in Ohio, the fact that we have so many mental health agencies is we are very, very lucky that we have access to resources that we can steer people toward. Now, but it's not perfect, and there's still so many needs that have not yet been made. And another great thing about Summit County is that we have these specialized dockets that are so great. So I run the mental health court, as you know, it's called HOPE, and it is for folks who are diagnosed with a severe and persistent mental illness, who really just want to get their life back and whose mental health has impacted them in a negative way and forced them to be involved in the criminal justice system. So we want to change that path. We want to change that direction for these individuals, show them that in a lot of ways, they have lived in a place in their world that they don't feel like they are entitled to or should be recipients of anything good, right? They've lived in a world of shame, they've lived in trauma, they've lived in tragedy, they've lived with voices in their heads, they've lived with hallucinations, they've lived with all of these negative things for so many years. And we want to show them, listen, that doesn't have to be who you are, and that doesn't have to define you or your future. We want folks to live independently, get their licenses back, live stably financially, whether they're receiving benefits from the government or they are working part-time and doing a vocation, and also reuniting with their families and having loving relationships and friends and social, access to social arenas where they feel safe. And so that is like the goal of our Hope Court. And I know that that's the same goal. I mean, the mental health piece is a little bit different with the other specialized dockets that we have, but we have a Turning Point program that's our drug court program. We have a veterans court, we have reentry court, we have a domestic violence court, and a valor court that's for veterans. I think I've already mentioned that. But these specialized dockets they're such a gem for our community because not only are they saving lives, but they're also saving money, because whenever somebody is in the jail, the amount of money it costs to house an individual in the jail is astronomical compared to letting them get outpatient treatment services and letting them live in the community. So that's my plug for what we do.
No, it's awesome. It's been a pleasure learning more about you, your background, the work that you're doing in the community, and I will get the information for the October 13th event, obviously, over to your staff and get that and the date and the time and location and that. Just looking forward to just being able to present an award to somebody that's I think very, very important to the community in what you do and wanting to help people regardless of kind of their background. You apply the law, but you still have that emotional side. It's like, okay, let's look at the whole person. And I think that's something that is that distinguish you from other people that we're kind of interested in looking at, the full breadth of what you do and the interest and the NAMI and the mental health and the outreach is just awesome to have you in Summit County as an elected official, as somebody that day in and day out works to the betterment of society.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's so kind of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll close out the episode, and then we'll grab a couple pictures, leave with you on the screen, and I'll send those over, and then we'll let you know when the episode is going to air and be available and that. And yeah, it's just been awesome to be able to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, Justin. What a pleasure.
Absolutely. And we want to thank you for joining us, our viewers, our listeners, on this episode of the Voices for Voices podcast. And a huge thank you to our guest, Judge Alison Breaux, for spending some time with us today. So until next time, I am Justin Allen Hayes, and I hope that you have a great day and be a voice for you or somebody in need.